In my long chess career, the dragon variation has been used against me about 20 times, and I think only once has my opponent managed to gain a draw. But although many years have passed, to this day this encounter with Korchnoi remains one of the clearest examples in the whole history of the variation. Possibly the level at which his game was played had a part in that. Anatoly Karpov. Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video I want to share with you the famous second game of the scandalous 1974 Karpov-Korchnoi Candidates final match. The first game ended in a draw, and we are good to go with the second game, which Karpov started with e4. Korchnoi answered with c5, Sicilian defense, knight f3 d6, d4 c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3 g6. Korchnoi is going for dragon variation, which is probably one of the sharpest lines in chess. Among leading grandmasters, dragon has not been popular, since white obtains a dangerous attack by choosing the Yugoslav attack and can even win with just a home preparation. This opening requires a gigantic theoretical knowledge. The lines stretch past 25-30 moves. Bishop e3 by Karpov, bishop g7, f3, knight c6, queen d2, black castled kingside, leaving the king in the center of the board and trying to castle as late as possible is becoming pretty much popular nowadays, but Korchnoi is following the classical line. Bishop c4, so we have the Yugoslav attack with bishop c4. Oops, and at this point we first see h4. So white's idea is simple: to open up the h file, exchange the dark squared bishops and target opponent's king. In return, black is organizing a counterplay on the queen side, relying on the vulnerability of the c file, and in many cases is using the power of this fianchettoed bishop. Rook c8. Korchnoi is following the line which earlier in 1971 he had played against Yefim Geller, although unsuccessfully. Other popular alternative is playing queen a5 and putting the kingside rook on c8. In that case, to bishop h6, black can answer with bishop h8. But instead we see rook c8, bishop b3, knight e5, and Karpov castled queenside, knight c4, bishop takes c4, rook takes c4, h5. At the cost of sacrificing a pawn, white wants to open up the h file as soon as possible. Knight goes back on f6. Karpov writes, here white has many possibilities: rook dg1, knight d5, bishop h6, e5. However, I chose the modest knight retreat to e2, as I had in mind one new idea which I had prepared specially for this match. Queen a5 by Korchnoi. But according to Stockfish, this is an inaccurate move, and instead Stockfish suggests rook e8 in order to meet bishop h6 with bishop h8. But instead in the game we see queen a5, bishop h6, and without meeting any obstacles, white is managing to exchange the dark squared bishops. And once black's dark squared bishop is removed, black's defense is becoming very vulnerable. Rook fc8, putting further pressure on c3. In many cases, as you know, black is going for an exchange sacrifice, and rook d3. There we have it. This is that prepared move about which Karpov was speaking. He is reinforcing the c3 square further, thus freeing this knight which already can jump into the attack. Rook for c5. On this move, Korchnoi spent more than half an hour, but this is a mistake. He is strengthening the fifth rank, but instead it was better to play bishop e6. And now if g5, then knight h5. If knight g3, then queen e5. Now can you understand how important it was to keep the fifth rank free for the queen? And after knight takes h5, g takes h5, rook takes h5, black can play queen g7. Or to queen h5 also. Queen g7 works, and black is actually managing to put a very tough resistance. But instead in the game we see rook c5, and now let's see what's the problem with it. Here comes g5. Karpov is going for the second pawn sacrifice, which Korchnoi accepted, but let's take a look. What if knight h5? Then in this case white can play knight f4. If rook takes g5, then rook d5 is very strong. A powerful deflective move, after which the c knight is jumping into the attack and black is in trouble. Let's go back in the game to g5. Black answered with rook takes g5, and as we have reached the critical position, you can pause the video and try to find Karpov's next move. Ready? Like in the previous line, we have a similar sacrifice, and there comes rook d5, not allowing black to put resistance with a move like rook h5. The move is absolutely precise, and I have to tell you that Karpov played this game like an engine, making only the top moves. The black knight of course can't leave its post because it should guard the h7 square, and that's why all Korchnoi could do was to capture on d5. Otherwise, if a move like rook c5, then this time white will win the rook on g5 with a queen. So in the game we see rook takes d5, knight takes d5, hitting both on e7 and also on f6, rook e8, and there comes the second knight, knight f4. Another very precise move, and guys, you have to be very careful. Hurrying with knight takes f6 won't give you anything. In this case, it turns out that black is managing to defend successfully, and we have an equality on the board. That's why white is switching his second knight into the attack. And already knight takes f6 followed by knight d5 can be a very nasty threat for black, taking under control the e7 square, and already, yes, black king will find itself in a mating net. Bishop c6 by Korchnoi is trying to take control over the d5 square, but let's take a look. What if bishop e6? Then in this case, here is the line which Karpov had prepared. He was intending to capture on e6 and then on f6 and then on h7, and yes, black's position collapses. There is now a direct mating threat. If queen g5 check, then king b1. If rook e7, then queen b8 check, and we have some sort of a windmill, you know, and then if here, then another check, and then queen takes d6, white is winning. In the game we see bishop c6, and another heavy blow by Karpov, which again turns out to be the only move allowing white to keep the advantage. e5. With this move, white is now trying to cut black queen from the defense. If d takes e5, then knight f6 check, followed by knight h5, and the game is over. If g takes h5, then rook g1 is winning. In the game to e5, Korchnoi answered with bishop takes d5 and e takes f6. E takes f6, queen takes h7 check, king f8, queen h8 check, and Korchnoi resigned. This is move 27, and we have a resignation. If king e7, then knight d5 check, followed by rook e1. So Korchnoi took a calculated risk, but we can see that Karpov's pre-match preparation turned out to be better. Korchnoi didn't even have time to reveal his preparations. Karpov writes, in the second half of 1974, this game won the best game prize in Informator with 89 marks out of 90. In the almost 30-year history of this contest, never have the Grandmaster jury been so unanimous. In the end, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the winning line for black. As usual, we'll wait for your answer in the comment section. Feel free to check out my early uploads as well. We'll see you in my next video. Take care.